Ottawa and speak to Ian Lee, a professor at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Professor, thank you so much for your time. If most economists are correct, and this is a lose-lose strategy from Donald Trump and his tariffs, let's look at the impact in the United States. I understand that people are now renting chickens because the price of eggs is so high. Donald Trump mentioned the price of eggs in his Congress address on, what day are we now? It was Tuesday night. So what's the state of the cost of living crisis in the US? What is the American consumer suffering right now?
You're absolutely correct, although I wouldn't, and I'm not here to defend Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form, but I wouldn't blame the egg crisis right now on the tariffs. That's because of a unique problem with avian flu, and they had to kill millions of birds and that sort of thing.
I know, just to get an indication of the cost of living crisis in the US.
But the larger issue is very real, and it's I like to characterize it as a bimodal crisis. What I mean by that is the two upper income groups, the top two quintiles, the top 40% are not suffering at all. They're doing very, very well. These are the people that live on the two coasts, as a gross generalization. The people that are suffering tremendously are in the bottom three quintiles. These are the working class people. These are the people in the Rust Belt states that voted for Donald Trump. You know, in Ohio, in rural Pennsylvania. I've driven through these states, and they're really taking it. They're really feeling it. The cost of living is very tough. It's very difficult and very challenging. And so what remains to be seen, I think, is going to show that the tariffs are going to drive up prices across the board, and they will impact the lower income people much more than higher income people, because that's always been the case. Higher income people have a lot more income, and food is a smaller percentage of their monthly budget. And so this could blow back. This could blow back and cause blowback for the President of the United States.
Sure. Look, we're here to look at the economic impact of the tariffs, not to talk about the politics of it. Do you agree with the Wall Street Journal? The article was quoted by Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, when he said the Wall Street Journal says that these tariffs are dumb. Are they dumb?
I've been teaching for 35 years, the strategy course dealing with firm and industry and country competitiveness. And I have been arguing for 35 years that tariffs are a destructive force. We've known this since Adam Smith 250 years ago. That's why we established free trade agreements around the world to raise prosperity, to raise the standard of living. And these tariffs are going to hurt everybody. There are no winners with tariffs because they take money out of the pockets of everybody, so you have less money to spend on other things. So it reduces our standard of living. It reduces our prosperity.
Has Donald Trump misunderstood something about the international economic system? And maybe he's learned since his first term as president, because during his first term, as he was campaigning, he said, I'm going to bring the jobs back to the US. What he didn't say was that a lot of those jobs, Professor, they're now being done by robots. There aren't actually jobs to be brought back. It's not as if a human is doing that work anymore.
Right. Again, I want to make it very clear, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump, but I did publish a paper, an op-ed in the National Post in Canada, on a paper written by Stephen Marin, who is now the chief economist to the White House to President Trump, where they spelled out their plan, their vision. I think it's a high risk. I said so. And they want to use tariffs to drive in capital investment back into the United States. It's essentially a mercantilist beggar thy neighbor policy. And indeed, you're correct. There's more and more robots going on, but there are still jobs in manufacturing, and they don't care if they take those jobs out of Canada or Mexico or Europe, because he is America first. And so, as I said, it's a very high risk strategy because, of course, all the blowback that's occurring, the tariffs drive up inflation. They create angry partners around the world. And so whether or not he's going to achieve his strategic objective of rebuilding essentially the Rust Belt, where a lot of these manufacturing jobs were located. I'm thinking of Detroit, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. These states have been really hammered in the last 20 years. They were hollowed out. And as I said, this is a high risk strategy by the president. It's yet to be seen if those tariffs are going to achieve what he wants. It may end up that he gets the costs of higher inflation without the benefits of more capital investment in those Rust Belt regions.
Well, you're speaking to us from Canada, so can you tell us if any modelling has been done which shows how much the Canadian economy may shrink by, how many jobs may be lost in Canada because of these tariffs?
Yes. There's been a lot of excellent modeling by professors in doing econometric modeling by the big banks and their economics departments. But most importantly, the governor of the Bank of Canada published the results of their modeling only 7 days ago for Canada. And it is going to be devastating. We're looking at a decline in GDP of anywhere from 2 to 5%, depending on the extent of the tariff, meaning how high the tariff is and how widely it's applied. We're looking at going into a recession. And as the governor correctly stated, this is not the pandemic. People are invoking the pandemic as an example. And he said, no, that was a cyclical phenomenon. We sent everybody home, pandemic went away, everybody goes back to work. This is a structural change in the economy. It's going to be a permanent reduction in the average incomes of Canadians. So this is worse than the pandemic because it's going to introduce a structural change, negative structural change into the Canadian economy. And it's going to, as I said, be devastating in terms of unemployment, in terms of capital investment. It's going to drive the Canadian dollar down, drive investment out, drive inflation up. There's a risk it could turn into higher interest rates if inflation hits 3 or more percent. The central bank may have to intervene. So, and of course, it's going to drive up prices for everybody. So this is lose, lose, lose all the way down the line. There are no redeeming benefits from using tariffs as a economic strategy.
Professor Ian Lee, you speak so clearly about such complicated matters. It makes me wish I was one of your students. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.